Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's main event features two mediocre athletes. In the blue corner, weighing in at a humiliating 220 pounds, the king of podcasting, the master of broadcasters, the one and only Joe. And in the red corner, weighing in at an even 208 pounds, the bald Seattle Bull, soon to be re-nicknamed Death from Above, Dave. And this is Reviews Without Remorse, episode number 93. What started out as a joke has turned out to be a disaster. In this episode, The Lion King gets the inevitable live-action remake, if you can call it that, and drops its first teaser trailer Dave and I will discuss. Hollywood mourns an unsurpassed artist, a man of many talents, Ricky Jay, and we pay tribute. The legendary Bernardo Bertolucci has also passed on. Dave and I will pay our respects. And then, it's time. Adonis Creed accepts the challenge and returns to take on Victor Drago. Can this franchise continue to defy expectations and stay on top? Dave and I have seen Creed 2, and we'll give you our thoughts. If this episode dies, it dies. What's up, partner?
That's a lot of Rocky IV quotes there, my man. I'm very, very interested in discussing this movie with you. I just finished watching it a couple of hours ago. It's still kind of churning in my head, so this will be interesting.
Let's get into it.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom. But a king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
Okay, first impression is I love Jon Favreau, do not get me wrong, but as I'm watching it, all I'm thinking to myself is, what is the point?
Yeah.
It's a shot-by-shot remake of the opening of the Lion King movie. What is the point? It looks beautiful. The animation is very well done. But again, at least with The Jungle Book, they brought something different to the table. They added elements in that the original movie didn't have. It updated some other things. And I thought that was very well done because of that. Right now, this doesn't really make me feel anything other than the inevitability and redundancy of remakes, regardless that Mr. Favreau is doing it. Again, it looks beautiful. It has an amazing cast, but I felt nothing as I was watching this.
I mean, and we've sort of been over it already, so, I mean, I won't even really get into it too deeply, but, I mean, we've talked about it. We've said that Maleficent, which I never get right, Maleficent.
Maleficent is fine.
Maleficent, thank you. I mean, very interesting take, and I thought, okay, I see what they're doing, and I'm on board. Didn't catch the Cinderella, the Jungle Book. Okay, now we're getting a little closer to what had already been done, but very interesting to see a live-action take on this. Mm-hmm. And then we got Beauty and the Beast, and it was a shot for shot, but okay, a live-action telling, more or less. Well, here we are. Here we are with The Lion King, a shot-for-shot remake as far as I can tell, and I'm hard-pressed to even call this a live-action version. There are no live actors in it. I'd be surprised if any of the animals are actually real. I'm sure they might do their best to insert live animals here and there where they can, just to say that they did. But as far as I'm concerned, it's an animated movie being remade as a different kind of animated movie. So, again, I suppose it's interesting for people who just want to see it done differently, enjoy, but I don't see the point. I have no interest in seeing it.
It has James Earl Jones back as Mufasa. It has Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar. Donald Glover as Simba. Seth Rogen as Pumbaa. Alfred Woodard as Sarabi. Keegan-Michael Kay as Kamari. Beyonce as the adult Nala. I mean, it's got John Oliver as Zazu. It's got a solid cast. You agreed with me. I'm agreeing with you. It feels pointless. I feel like Favreau, I don't know, did Favreau just need to buy shoes or something like that? Is that what this is all about?
Well, hey, look, somebody's going to do it. Might as well be him. You know, I have no problem with him taking on a job, and I'm sure he will execute it competently.
Oh, of course he will, because he's John frickin' Favreau.
Sure. But like you said, do we need it? I don't.
I'm not going to be busting down any box office for it, but you know what the sucky part is? There's going to be like huge box office numbers, guaranteed. It's going to make it's going to print money, and
it is, and it is kind of unfortunate because again they started out with something that was looking, again, Maleficent was an interesting experiment. It was turning the what we knew about this story on its head, giving us a fresh, different take on it. But they just decided from there to, you know what, we don't need to get carried away. We could just play it safe, just redo them, and people will come. And there you go. So what started out as something that could have been interesting is now become mediocre.
But I did bring somebody with me I'm really sure you're going to enjoy. He'll be listed in the Guinness Book of World Records for throwing a playing card further than anybody else outdoors. I'd like you to meet my friend and fellow illusionist, the remarkable Ricky Jay.
Born in Brooklyn, New York City in 1948, no birth date given, Richard J. Potash was a magician. Sleight of hand was his thing. For many years, he was a consultant on movies where there were magicians and taught sleight of hands. He eventually became an actor. He was in a couple of episodes of Simon and Simon. He was in Boogie Nights. Probably his biggest role was the introduction of the Kurt Longjohn character in Boogie Nights. He went on to go into Magnolia, Mystery Men, The X-Files, Tomorrow Never Dies as Henry Gupta. The man, you have seen him before. Probably his biggest claim to fame had to be the first season of Deadwood, where he played the part of Eddie Sawyer. He was very critically acclaimed for that part. The Prestige. Trust me, if you've seen this actor, you know who he is. And Ricky Jay died on November the 24th at age 70. He has been a staple for many, many years. Very, very steady working man. And the thing about our show is we try to make sure that we give credit to people that in some way, shape, or form has given life to characters that we have enjoyed. And I loved his character in Deadwood, and I enjoyed his character in Boogie Nights and Magnolia, and Mystery Men. Mystery Men, which I think is a completely underrated movie, by the way.
Yeah, I honestly have to tell you, I really didn't know much about this guy. In fact, when I saw him, he was in Tomorrow Never Dies as, henchman is not quite the right word, but a side villain. And I remember kind of thinking that he didn't really have a lot of presence. I kind of felt like, you usually those side characters would have a lot of panache. It wasn't until, frankly, I saw some of the deleted scenes that he was in. He actually had a skill that he was supposed to be using where he actually threw cards and they would stick. Like they would stick in the wall and he could use them like kind of like Gambit from the X-Men would actually fling a card and do some damage. Yeah, but unfortunately it kind of hit the cutting room floor. So yeah, you didn't really get the full effect of his character in that. But so once I kind of learned who he was and what his talents were, yeah, he was a pretty impressive guy.
Yeah. So farewell, Ricky Jay. We will miss you.
It's over. It's
That's
over.
Right. It's over, and then it begins again.
What begins again? I don't understand anything anymore.
Well, there's nothing to understand. We left the apartment, and now we begin again with love and all the rest of it.
The rest?
Born March 16th, 1941 in Parma, Italy, Bernardo Bertolucci built a resume of stylistic and beautiful films, starting in the 1960s with La Camera Seca, Before the Revolution, How to Win $1 Billion and Get Away with It. he also wrote a lot of movies. For example, he also wrote Once Upon a Time in the West for another famous Italian director, Sergio Leone. His first real major movie, the first movie that really got him serious notice, was Last Tango in Paris, the 1972 movie with Marlon Brando and an unfortunate use of butter. Imaginative,
Not touching that one.
Yeah. But he followed it up with 1900, Luna, eventually to 1987's Last Emperor. And if you're ever looking to see what the big deal was about Bertolucci, that should be your first place that you start. A tremendously beautiful and poignant movie about a time that, when it came out in 1987, I had no clue about. And when I say beautiful, when you look at this movie, it is exquisite. And even Last Tango in Paris, strange as the topic matter might have been to some people at the time, it was tremendously filmed and wonderfully acted. Bertolucci had a way of capturing a scene and talking to his actors that allowed them to transcend the material and get it across even more so than what you would think. He went on to do Little Buddha, which, by the way, was Keanu Reeves' first real attempt at serious acting. So good on you, Bertolucci. But you know what? He's still with us. And Stealing Beauty, 1996's Stealing Beauty. Kind of a favorite of mine, actually. Much more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be the first time I saw it.
You know, it's funny because I sort of discovered him right as I was really starting to get a little deeper into movies. Mm-hmm. He did a film in 1990 called The Sheltering Sky.
I'm sorry, I skipped Sheltering Sky. You're right. Go on.
You know, again, I was sort of watching that for a combination of Bertolucci, and also I was sort of discovering John Malkovich back then. And then, when Stealing Beauty came out, I made sure to check that one out. And I kind of remember Stealing Beauty more fondly because of the soundtrack, quite frankly. Yeah. It's actually a very good soundtrack. But he was a guy. And of course, The Last Emperor is an amazing film. A tremendous talent, and really did shape modern cinema.
He passed away on November the 26th, 2018 in Rome, Italy. And to say we're never going to see another visionary like that is putting it mildly.
It's time, kid.
It's like nothing really matters to him right now, including me.
You gotta think real hard about this. So you got people that need you now.
I'm taking the fight.
Victor Drago, son of Ivan Drago, who infamously killed Apollo Creed, appeared today to issue a challenge to Adonis Creed.
Don't do this.
I ain't got a choice.
That's the same thing your father said, and he died right here in my hands.
Under the tutelage of Rocky Balboa, light heavyweight contender Adonis Creed faces off against Victor Drago, son of Ivan Drago. Written by Jewel Taylor and Sylvester Stallone. Story by Jewel Taylor, Sylvester Stallone, Sasha Penn, Cheo Hodari Cocker. Based on characters created by Ryan Coogler and Sylvester Stallone. Directed by Stephen Capel Jr. Creed 2.
Creed 2. It's finally here.
I about jumped out of my seat when the referee said, "What's your name?" And Michael B. Jordan looked at him straight in the eye and with ferocity said, "Creed!" I was ready to just jump up and applaud.
Right?
I floored by this movie, to be perfectly honest with you. Again, this is a movie that doesn't have the right to be as good as it is. Every single marketing or whatever should tell you that this was a bad idea.
Yeah.
But it worked. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. It suffers a little bit due to, the pedigree that it's part of, but we'll get to that. But I had a tremendous time. I got emotional. I loved a majority of this entire thing. And holy smokes, I may have to rewatch Rocky IV because I kind of feel like the character of Ivan Drago got redeemed.
Right? Let me start out this way, because I caught Movie Bob doing his critique, and the one thing he said rang true, and it was funny because this was sort of going around and around in my head. He basically said, if you're listening to this for a genuine hardcore review, you might not get it, or take what I say with a grain of salt, because this stuff, you can't remove the nostalgia part from it. So it's gonna live in guys of our generation differently than somebody of today might get this. When I say it's firing on all cylinders, I'm talking about cylinders that a young person might not even know about. Having said that, it fires on all cylinders. I completely agree with you that this is not a perfect film, but again, just the fact that this film, a film, like you said, by all accounts should not work, it works. They made it work, and that alone is just mind-boggling.
I was kind of stunned, to be perfectly honest with you. I really felt like maybe this was where everything falters, but I was very, very hard-pressed. I even as I was going through it in my head afterwards, I just said to myself, no, this was amazing. This was really, really well done. And, did you ever think that after Rocky IV, you would think to yourself, you know what, we need a little more closure with Ivan Drago? Did you ever think that?
Yeah.
By the time the final fight came up, I never realized how much closure I wanted from that.
Yeah.
Never realized that.
Right. It's so true. And honestly, again, going back to what we said about how it shouldn't work, if someone told you 30 years ago or any time after that, if they said, yeah, in the mid 20 or the late 2010s, they're going to do a sequel where the son of Apollo Creed fights the son of Ivan Drago.
The illegitimate son, no less.
Right. You would be imagining something in terms of like Jaws 4 or Alien versus Predator, where you're just now just in the bottom, the bare bottom dregs of what you can scrape out of a franchise, and just you basically just said the hell with everything at that point, and who we'll just do whatever and people will pay to see it. You'd never imagine that not only would it work spectacularly, but you would actually be talking about a movie that is better in quality, empirically better as a film than its source material.
Yeah. Easily,
this film is more or less a sequel to Rocky IV. And I love how structurally, like, it apes off Rocky 3 and 4, yet has the same magic or majesty as the original. Again, how they were able to pull this off alone is just nothing short of a miracle.
What you have here is an amazing amalgamation of Rockies 2, 3, and 4. That's what this is. Because in Rocky 2, Adrian had the baby, and, she fell into a coma from having the baby. Rocky 3, his first major defeat up against Clubber Lang, and Rocky 4 with Ivan Drago. You've got all three of these movies that are the chemistry of the story of this movie. And you would think that almost seems crowded, but it wasn't. It never felt... I can't decide if it's just the fact that we are... cheap dates because of how much we love the first one, how Rocky Balboa turned out, seeing Stallone and stuff like that, or if this is a case where it was well written, and more importantly, and I'm just going to say it right now, I didn't find a clunker in any of the actors in this entire movie. Not one.
No.
Everyone.
Not one.
Everyone was firing so damn solid. Yeah. Every character had these moments that were just beautiful. That moment with by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we love the movie. We suggest you go see it. We're going into spoilers now.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not that we warned you at the start, but it's time we just get into it. The scene where he takes his daughter, And he goes to the, he has no idea what to do. He can't figure out how to calm the kid down. Takes the kid for a drive. And the first thing I say to myself is, yep, that's what I used to do when Liam would get a little fussy. Takes it to the gym and starts pounding on the thing and like just screams. And the kid's looking at him like, what are you saying? That scene after when he goes home and he's laying on the floor with the kid on his chest and him and Tessa Thompson look at each other, just so, you didn't need to do that in a gosh darn, Creed/Rocky movie. You don't need those type of moments. But I love those types of moments. I love the fact that they never actually said that the baby was deaf. That they just showed Michael B. Jordan's reaction and there it was. And then Tessa Thompson saw his reaction and she reacted. And you hear like a subtle sound in the background of, well, these first tests, blah, 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 blah. But you just see the devastation and you know that's what's happening. Yeah. What a tremendous performance. Tremendous performances by everybody.
Big time. And I'll say this too, because you're hitting on something. I felt like at every turn, for the most part, if there was sort of like an expected cliched sort of out. Now, I should probably clarify. The basic structure of the film, I think for the most part, is probably no surprise. For the most part, it plays out. And I'll talk more about that later. However, there was a lot of moments, like very kind of cliche, traditional moments that I think that they intentionally passed on. For example, when he's in that scene, when he's at the gym, hitting the bag, and he's with the baby. Mm-hmm. I was kind of waiting for. I was waiting for it. He's gonna hit the bag, or he's gonna yell, or something or other. The baby's gonna flinch, and that was gonna be the big reveal, the big happy moment that the baby can hear. Mm-hmm. They didn't go for that. They kept it real, and there was a lot of cheap shots that they could have gone for, and they did not. And I liked that. I liked that a lot. With that in mind, I also felt that there were some moments where they probably could have used it, where they could have used that kind of, the playing with your expectations a little bit. Mm-hmm. Some moments where, again, like there was a scene where Tessa Thompson is talking to his mother, Felicia Rashad.
Right.
And they're having a conversation. And she's saying that he's kind of in his own world right now. He's not coming out of his funk, and he's not even paying attention to me, which is different. And she turns around and says, "Look, he's a grown man. He needs to get through this himself, and he will." And I kind of feel like that's sort of exactly what does happen. And I was sort of waiting for like a linchpin, like a turning point that makes him get with the program and snap out of it. And I kind of feel like it never really happened. After letting it sit for a while, he just kind of snaps himself out of it. I was sort of back and forth. Do I like that? Again, I like the idea that they kept it pretty real. That they didn't shortcut or take a cheap, cliche kind of a, it was almost like I was waiting for the moment in Rocky 3 where Rocky just kind of, he's out there on the West Coast with Apollo training, can't get his head back in the game, starts to punk out, and then Adrian kind of gives him the dressing down, and there's a breakthrough moment, and he snaps back.
Right.
And I was waiting for that here, and it didn't come. Am I disappointed that it didn't come, or am I happy that it didn't come? Am I happy that they didn't follow beat for beat what's come before, or do exactly what was expected? They did keep it real. Mm. They kept it grounded. Again, they didn't get corny when they could have. And again, I wondered, is that the fear when you're making a film like this? That the first time you sort of take a right turn down corny avenue, are people going to go, oh shit, there we go. This is where this is going to lose its footing. Because again, you're talking about it's Drago Jr. versus Creed Jr. It easily is going to be the target of here's where it slipped up. Here's where it slipped up. So maybe I'm wondering, did they play it a little too safe even?
That is an excellent question, because there is still a lot left of it that follows the normal Rocky formula.
Yeah.
You've got the start with the victory, then you've got the midway point where he is beaten down, and then the big training montage scene where he goes back to his roots, or however it was. By the way, the training montages in this movie on point. You gotta give him that.
Absolutely.
As always, if there's one thing a Rocky movie is never bad at, it's training montages.
Of course.
Okay.
If you screw that up, don't even show up for work on Monday.
Exactly. Woohoo! 4-day weekend. Anyway, so there are some things that still fall within the cliche, but there are things. I hate this terminology, but sometimes it's accurate. There are elements that subvert expectations. I did not expect the fight to end the way it did. I didn't see it coming. I saw it maybe 5 seconds before it was going to happen. And
the final fight you talk about.
Yeah, the final fight. And when it happened, I was like, oh my God, what a beautiful frickin' bookend.
Agreed. I totally agree with you there. And that was probably the most poetic thing they could have done there. When Dolph Lundgren starts to pace around the ring right before that moment, like he's walking over and you see Rocky look staring at him, watching him intently. I had a moment where I was like, wait, is Drago going to throw a punch? Is he going to get so frustrated he's going to jump in and punch Adonis Creed, and Rocky's going to have to jump in and start punching on Drago? I thought for sure, from a split second, I thought this is what was going to happen, and I started to freak out.
That would have been a very hard thing to happen. On the one hand, I kind of wish we had seen fisticuffs between the two of them. From what I understand, there's a deleted scene where they did have a brief fight in the hospital where Adonis was staying. But it was cut. Honestly, I'm kind of glad we got with what we got. I understand that, yes, there was the emotion and you had that moment. But I kind of feel like at that point, there is a redemption to Ivan Drago by the end of this movie. It's not a perfect redemption. He's no longer the two-dimensional stoic robot from Rocky 4. There was a moment
wholeheartedly agree.
When Bridget Nielsen realized that the fight was going against them, and she stood up and walked out, and he saw her, and it was the weirdest moment for me. I was like, oh my God. And the way Dolph Lundgren handled it, I was like, you got to be kidding me. And it was brilliantly done. But then when Victor noticed that she was gone, here I was saying to myself, I want Adonis to beat the ever-living crap out of you. But for the briefest moment here, I felt bad for you, for both of you.
Yeah. Agreed. That was a masterful touch. And honestly, that was probably the moment when Rocky's at the restaurant.
Some big guy is sitting over there waiting for you. He said, you don't know who he is?
There's you.
And you see him sitting there, and that's when I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, are you kidding me? And, and you're not sure where this is going to go, how this is going to go, how it's going to play out. But yeah, that conversation, and again, oh my God, I love how this is written, and Stallone has completely gotten his groove back. I literally had flashes, and I'm kind of getting all over the place right now, but I swear I'll bring it back.
It's okay, man. Take your time.
I literally had a flash of Rocky V, and remember how I totally lambasted the scene with Mickey and the little bird on your shoulder, a little angel who's gonna whatever, and I remember it was just so awful, and I thought that was one of the most poorly written scenes I'd ever seen in a movie, because almost he forgot to write. He forgot to write the scene. Instead, he wrote the things that he wanted to get across, but stopped. Okay, but how do I get these characters to convey this in a way that is natural? Right. Here, you had it. You had it, and the things that they talked about conveyed what you needed to know. Just the part alone when Drago said something about he's looking around the room, all the memorabilia hanging up, and he says, "There's no pictures of me up here, are there?" And Rocky's like, "Yeah, no, there's no pictures of you in here." Mm-hmm. And I kind of it almost hit me like, oh yeah, I felt like I would have noticed that was the big fight. That was probably, you could argue, the biggest fight of Rocky Balboa's career, as far as that timeline goes. But yeah, this guy killed his best friend. We are not going to celebrate this guy in any way, shape, or form. And then as the discussion went on, when he, said, like, after that fight, basically his whole world turned to garbage. It was so believable. Yes, he was probably a guy who was known for his athleticism. He was the golden boy who was going to bring glory to the Soviet Union. And once he lost, he was of no use to them. So he would be shunned and cast out. And yeah, like all of a sudden that makes perfect sense. And just as a motivation, a villain's motivation, I mean, an adversarial motivation, it works. It makes perfect sense. And so I'm totally on board. The fact that now his son is a boxer and he's going to push him. So you have that kind of blind motivation that would drive these people. But yeah, oh my God. So not only was I totally on board with the motivation, with how the story was progressing, I loved seeing him as a character now with depth. That was at that point in the movie, I was just like, if somebody asked me to score this halfway through this film, I would have given it just like gangbusters, because my adrenaline was just through the roof, and nothing really had even happened yet necessarily.
No, it's a very well-crafted movie. It gives amazing character moments to everybody. It tells a story. It tells a story that makes sense in a logical fashion. It manages to still... It relies on a formula of a 42-year-old movie. I'm going to say that again. A 42-year-old movie. And yet, it still works. It works because it has these amazing character moments and tells a story that feels like a perfect offshoot of the crazy... Rocky IV was a crazy movie. Freaking... Apollo Creed came down wearing an Uncle Sam hat to living in America up against Ivan Drago. It's in many forms, it's a ridiculous movie. And at one point, freaking Paulie gets a freaking robot. Okay, in so many ways, it is a ridiculous movie. So when you think we're going to do a sequel to this, you sometimes tell yourself, are they going to go off in ridiculousness? No, they brought it down in a way that. Like the way DC wishes they could do a freaking superhero movie is the way that they brought it down. They didn't forget their quote unquote ridiculous past. They respected it, but they moved forward with it in a way that made sense, both as a story and as a character. And you sympathized with Ivan Drago when they're sitting for dinner and his ex shows up. And you could just see like the anguish on his face, and the son just can't take it and walks out. There was this was the moment in the movie where I realized they're going to make me feel sympathy for Ivan Drago. When his son is yelling at him, why? And he just yells at him, "I lost." And that actually took me aback. Like, I never expected him to admit that.
Yeah. That was, yes, absolutely. And again, I kind of feel like that's the scene that a lot of people will let slip under the radar and just sort of dismiss it as, oh, well, they shot that to give Bridget Nielsen a cameo. No. First of all, as soon as she walked in the door, I was flipping out of my chair. I went to see this with my brother and my girlfriend, by the way. And I'm sitting there just punching in the air, going like, "Oh my God, they brought her back! Oh my God, this is great! I can't believe it." Again, any kind of little nostalgia, fan service. Like I said, easy date. But that scene was so brilliant because again, it drove the point home that he said once he lost, he was nothing, and his country forgot about him. His wife left, everything, right? So just to drive the point home, he's sitting at the dinner with again the higher ups, the Russian royalty, right? Mm-hmm. And now suddenly it's like, oh, okay, hey Drago, we kind of like you again because your boy's an up and comer, so you're welcome back at the table, right? And who comes walking in? Her, who's obviously there with this other guy. So yes, it's like she dumped his and by the way, there's a little parallel if you think about it, which I don't think was an accident. Bridget Nielsen as the gold digger.
And yet she agreed to come back. That's hysterical. Go on.
Listen, they could have written her whatever. As long as they paid her, I'm sure she would have done whatever. But I mean, basically she was a gold digger. She dumped him, moved on to somebody else to stay in the upper echelon of the social ranks. So now here they are back at the table with all the higher ups, and who comes walking in? Her, next to the guy she dumped him for just to stay on top. And here she and saying something, oh, look good for you. Like something condescending, good for you. Which is planting the seeds of, why are we doing this? We're chasing this kind of dream, this sort of imaginary dream where we matter here. Well, no matter what we do, we're only going to matter to them for what we can provide them at the moment. It has nothing to do with us, and so you can sort of see the building blocks later. First of all, of the frustration along the way, but also the realization. Again, to fast forward to the ending. When he throws the towel, that, again, it's sort of a great moment because, again, harkening back to when Rocky failed to throw in the towel, but again, gives Drago a magnificent arc where he throws in the towel and he grabs his son and he just says, it's okay.
Yes.
There's more important. I don't want to see you get clobbered and destroyed for nothing. Why are we doing this anyway? You know what I mean? I'm not going to lose my son to chase this dream. And again, a magnificent humanizing moment, which story-wise it works. And again, bringing in that baggage, all the stuff we know from Rocky IV, where Drago was this like non-thinking machine who was just there to bring glory to the country. He's a human being with a son and made the right decision.
That kid was raised in hate. It's dangerous. He broke things in me that ain't never been fixed. It ain't worth it.
It's not just us anymore, Dick.
I want to rewrite history.
If you want to fight this man, that's your business. But don't pretend this is about your father.
This here is all about my wife, my kids.
By the way, I had moments in this movie, I swear to you, I had moments while I was watching it saying to myself that this franchise right now, this, if you include Rocky Balboa in this, Rocky Balboa, Creed, and Creed 2, this series as it is right now, as far as I'm concerned, it's got to be like the only other film I can think of that deserves to be in the same sentence as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In terms of something that is being done cinematically, that is being done with such tremendous expertise. And it's really, for all intents and purposes, sort of a dream franchise where you're taking something that kind of exists in, I want to say, almost modern American folklore, sort of, bringing it to modern cinema and making it work in a way that it shouldn't. That it really should not work. I mean, everything is fighting against it, sort of. But yet they've managed to sort of bring things that have come before. Like in one situation, you're taking things that happen in comic books, you're bringing it to modern cinema and doing a whole, universe of films and making it all work. Here, you're able to reach back into cinematic history and pulling it into a modern film where you're giving something to modern audiences, yet also giving something to fans of the classics, and doing it in a way that works brilliantly, and again, by all accounts, really should not work. I mean, honestly, I also had a moment too with that in mind. This is sort of like the antithesis to what was wrong with The Last Jedi, where The Last Jedi felt they had to tear down the classic Star Wars to make the new stuff work, which was, again, totally wrong. Here is exactly what they should be doing, or what should have done, rather, where this film embraces everything that came before, elevates everything that came before in a way that almost improves upon what came before, and they're giving the Rocky story to the current generation in a way that I think is just absolutely spectacular. I love that the new generation has this franchise and this series of films to look at to get that same sense of inspiration that we got when we saw the original Rocky films.
First of all, agreed with all of that except for one thing, the use of the word almost. It does improve what came before.
Yes.
Rocky 4, you remember my review of Rocky 4? It's like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I mean, it's fluff. It's not fluff anymore. This movie has taken a fluffy movie. It's still fluff, but it has twisted it into something with meaning, with poetry. It's added a level of poetry to the second least poetic Rocky movie of all.
You could almost, if you think about it, you could probably take both films. You could take Creed 2, recut it to insert scenes from Rocky 4 as flashbacks, and make it work. Like if you did maybe if you made the Rocky 4 flashbacks in black and white, for example, maybe change the soundtrack just a tiny bit, maybe get rid of the rock and roll score and whatever, but basically insert these as sort of like memory moments, whatever. And you sort of pitched it to like a younger person who's never seen either one as a new thing. It would really work.
Potentially. The only problem is that since Adonis Creed wasn't there, and this is Adonis's story,
of course.
Yeah, I love the idea. Don't get me wrong, and I don't think there's anything in this movie that. The thing that works, that's amazing to me about this movie is that it is standalone. They're really.
Yeah.
I was watching it saying to myself, okay, try to approach this movie as if I have seen Creed. This is the only thing I know about this character. Okay? Think of it that way. Go. Yeah. And as I was watching, it's like, no, you know what? They don't condescend to the audience, but they don't condescend to the fans, but they also don't leave the new fans behind. They give the information that you need to understand what's going on. They show the fight where apologized. They explain all the little things about this character, but then they give him nuance. So you're right. You're analogous to The Last Jedi, whereas we can't make a success of Star Wars the way it is. This is the way it's got to be in order for us to move forward. That's what The Last Jedi was. We both agreed upon that in our initial review. This movie says, really? Hold my beer. Here is a 42-year-old formula, and we still make it work. Nah. And we modernized it. And we introduced it to a younger audience and brought in, for God's sakes, that whole scene where Tessa Thompson's character walks him down for the final fight and sings that song.
Yes.
It's like, I'm watching that and thinking to myself, holy smokes, I'm so glad they didn't use that in the first movie. I'm so glad they saved it for this.
Yeah, right. It makes you start to say to yourself, why didn't we think of this before? But it made perfect sense because, again, part of him needing to redeem himself was to regain the relationship he has with her.
Right.
To get back on being a team. And this was a fantastic way to do that, to show that visually and actually, where you're showing that this is us as the team. We're going to do this together, and you're bringing something to the table as well, as opposed to just sitting on the stands, the damsel in distress.
Right.
Very, very well done. Great idea.
There's just so much cinematically to love. I mean, my Who Asked You, I feel like is petty, but it is what it is. I just was so enamored by this movie. Every hit, like when he started getting the crap beat out of him, when the first time that Drago broke his ribs, I was wincing in my seat.
Totally. Oh my God. Yeah, that was rough. That was really rough. And by the way, here's a little side note before I forget. I didn't quite realize or pick up on this in the last Creed. I didn't realize that the guy who was the trainer in the LA gym was supposed to be the son of Duke.
Yes.
Of Apollo's old trainer. I didn't catch that.
Oh, yeah.
I swear to you, by the time the first fight was going on, I realized, I said, okay, wait a second. So we got Duke Jr. training Apollo Jr. to fight Drago Jr. I thought for sure that James Brown Jr. was going to show up to sing the song before the thing started.
Hey!
But yes, one of the things that I absolutely loved about this was the pickle, for lack of a better word, that it puts Rocky in. Look at the situation that now Rocky finds himself in. I mean, literally, this was the moment that changed his life. His best friend died, was killed at the hands of this guy's father. This is what Rocky has been through. He was standing there at the side with the towel in his hand. He didn't know what to do. He was torn, and Apollo ends up dead.
Apollo does scream, "No, don't do it." So
right, but again, Rocky's saying, do I listen to him or do I use my own judgment and throw that sucker in there? So now I got the son of this guy who, even when he first started boxing, I wasn't sure what the right thing to do was. Do I jump in feet first wholeheartedly with this kid who wants to now put himself at risk? I'm sure his mother's not too happy about it. I'm sure his mother wouldn't be too happy with me knowing that I'm in this with him. Or do I let him flounder on his own, possibly get hurt without offering any guidance, without helping, whatever? Well, now you've amped that up to 10, to 11, because now the kid wants to fight the son of the same guy who killed his old man. This kid who is humongous, who can do some serious damage. What do I do with this? Am I just going to say, yeah, sure, why not? Go ahead, I'll train you. Or do I say, hell no, and I'm not being a part of it? So you feel for Rocky at this point. It's almost like a lose-lose. No matter what decision you make, it's easily the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
You know, so Rocky gets an arc. I love the arc that he decides, look, if this kid is going to do this, I'm going to help him with it. I mean, that's basically what Apollo did for me when I was down and out. He showed up when I was down, when I got knocked out by Clubber and was really at the bottom of my rope. He came along and lifted him up and helped him out. So I guess that's the only decision he can make. So that when he comes back and helps, I mean, it also makes perfect sense. And by the way, I do love that training montage. And again, I love that whole idea. You can't just mosey back into your same old gym, start up again like nothing. You need a radical departure. I almost wondered, by the way, when they said the fight was in Russia, I was really wondering, are they going to go to Russia? Are they going to go to Russia? But no, the way they did it was well done. It didn't, again, not beat for beat repeat of what we've seen before, but the same idea where you need a radical departure. You need to throw yourself into the pit of hell. That's how we do it. We can't not just going back to the same gym doing what we did before.
Oh, I'm trying to get my thoughts together. What you said was a mouthful, but totally true.
Which I tend to do, by the way. But sorry.
That's all right. The underlying story here is fathers and their children, and in some cases, their surrogate children. So, in many ways, Rocky is Creed's surrogate father. Creed has now become a father. You've got the story of Drago and his son, and then eventually Rocky and his own son, which, by the way, nice bringing back the kid from Rocky Balboa to play his son again.
Yes, agreed. Like that. Nice touch.
Nice little touch. I liked that ending. I like that ending where he goes to Apollo's grave and introduces his daughter to Apollo. I like that you see Victor Drago training, and now his dad is not in a car following him. He's by his side. I love that. And lastly, when he meets his grandson Logan and takes him out for a catch, how beautiful of an ending is that? After all that, like the three people just having a happy ending. How nice!
Yeah.
How nice!
Yeah, I agreed. I do agree. And again, it really did have this very realistic kind of a feel to it, that this is where we would be. The fact that I like the idea that it's almost like you got a sense when he reunites with his son, it's not a pure happy ending. Everything here from now on is going to be sunshine and roses.
No.
You get a sense that he and his son will continue to have a difficult relationship, but he's willing to have the relationship. You know, it's not about solving every problem in a nice, neat way. It's not going to be perfect, but he's here. He's up to bat, and he's ready to go forward and do what he needs to do. And I thought that was the best you could do. I mean, because again, if they did make it a little too rosy, it would have sort of like undercut what they had done in Rocky Balboa with him and his son.
Mm-hmm.
They're very different people. You could tell this son is not, but this is the best you're going to get. Let's do this.
Agreed. I felt like there was, if there's one thing this endeavor has shown me, is that the writers, the producers, the directors, everybody has an affinity for the original Rocky series. But
yes.
in a also wonderful and beautiful way, they managed to respect that past, but not let it overshadow the character of Creed. That is kind of, I mean, it's called Creed. It's his story. It needs to focus on him. Rocky is a background character, and that's all he should be. But in a way, he's now become the perfect background character. He has become the Mickey of this new series, and he's beautiful at it. And
Agreed.
Michael B. Jordan, as a lead, who could ask for better? He is seriously one of the strongest young actors of the day, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, I totally agree. The cast is a home run for sure. You know, I loved the part at the weigh-in. You know, when he's looking at Ivan Drago, and Drago looks back and he goes, "You're smaller than your father was," and, and that's all it took to set him off and go great. You know, that was so. Oh my god, it was great. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I love how they're writing Rocky as it's almost Yoda-like, where he's got all of this wisdom now just from a life of experience. I mean, he is a graduate, summa cum laude, from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
You know, and that comes through in everything he says. The advice that he gives him and the things that he says, just spot on. They handle that so well. I mean, so again, I hate to keep sort of shining the spotlight on Rocky V as how you don't do it. But again, something they were toying with in Rocky V. Again, just showing how he was not ready to do that yet. He was not he was not at a place in his career where he could have written that movie and done it successfully. But here he is showing that he is totally back on his prime. Because again, Stallone did write this film. And I like that he's back in the writer's chair with this too, by the way. Like he knows how to do this right. He can do this in his sleep, frankly. But again, but he hands this to the new generation. Is okay, but now you make it work. You know, you make it work your own way, and they do.
This won't be the end of me. Or you. It can't be, because we're a team.
Now you know what you're fighting for.
So I think it's time. What we have here is a beautiful anomaly. A movie that, for all intents and purposes, has no business being as good as it is. Has no business taking a 42-year-old formula and breathing life into it the way that it did. Sure, fine, I admit, some of it was nostalgia, but I don't know anything about the character of Creed other than what the movies came before us. What you have here is a continuation of a story with a little bit of nostalgia thrown in, but you add in the story of this wonderful new character at Adonis Creed, this wonderful character played by Tessa Thompson, Bianca Creed now. You have the struggle of a person who has their entire life been told that they're nothing but an offshoot of a great person who wants to carve their path. And I feel that this story is a worthy telling. And I feel that as ridiculous as we first talked about this plot. Oh, it's going to be Adonis Creed versus Ivan Drago's son. And I think the two of us were kind of like, oh boy, this could be where the series loses it. Yeah. And yet it doesn't. And why? Because you have writers that take the source material seriously. You have the guiding hand of Sylvester Stallone saying, well, no, probably saying, Rocky wouldn't do that, and so on and so forth. You have a heavyweight, a literal heavyweight champions of acting, of an acting crew, delivering solid performances, emotional performances, showing, not telling. Oh my God, I love, me, I love that stuff. That's movies, that's film. The fact that the doctor never actually said that the baby was deaf, I loved that. I mean, it's tragic, don't get me wrong. It's tragic that the baby's deaf. I love stuff like that where an actor is given an opportunity to convey emotion without, oh no, the baby is deaf, what are we going to do? That type of stuff. That was beautifully done. Everything in this movie worked except maybe for the age-old formula, but I'll get to that in a minute. This, my friend, is an extremely solid 9 flick, and I highly recommend it to anybody.
Well said. And it's funny. I almost could have guessed what your number was going to be because I purposely went back and re-listened to some of our own podcasts in discussing the Rockies and the Creeds and yeah, I totally agree with you in spades that it really is amazing how this incredibly competent team of filmmakers was able to take something that, like we've been saying, for all accounts shouldn't work, and they made it work. Something that easily could have been just something that could have easily been dismissed as the worst money-grabbing sort of fluff nonsense. Again, akin to the worst sequels you've ever heard of. But, Jesus, they made it work. And as I'm watching this film, I swear to you, it's I don't know either. I don't know either. Is it the nostalgia factor? Because this movie had me by the throat. There's moments where I'm fighting back tears where I'm not even sure why. Like I'm sitting there, I got that when it feels like something is pushing on the back of your eyeballs, that kind of the trying not to cry thing. I got that through so many points in this film, and I'm not even positive why. Is it just that good, or am I just an easy lay? But anyway, and like I said, there are moments in this film I thought for sure there were moments early on when I thought I was scoring this movie a 10. Yeah. Because it was just that good. It just caught me by the throat and wouldn't let go. With that said, I also felt that the problem, while on one hand this film was a knockout, if I'm going to keep with the boxing analogies, I also felt that it played it safe. And there was like a lot of jabs, a lot of solid jabs, landing jabs, and there were moments where I felt like I was waiting for the uppercut. I'm waiting for that twist, that uppercut to come out of nowhere and take things off the rails of where they're predictably moving, and it didn't quite come. So with that in mind, I'm gonna score it an 8, and I'm scoring it a high 8. I like, again, if we got into the decimals, sometimes I wish we did, but I gave Creed a 9. I would give this like an 8.8, and just say, look, it's in the same vein. If you love the first one, you're going to love the second one. If you love the classic Rockies, you're going to love this one. You have to go see this. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is mandatory viewing for anyone who has any love at all for these films. But I did find that it played it safe a lot of times. And like I said, with that in mind, I'm going to give it an 8, but it is a strong 8, a high 8, and I highly recommend it.
When I was writing my notes for this, I actually initially scored it an 8 as well. And I can tell you right here, right now, it was the moment that Dolph Lundgren, Ivan Drago threw the towel into the ring. That's when I gave it the extra point. That was the whole reason it got the extra point.
Because, I'm totally with you on that too.
Yeah. This is a tremendous movie. It's a tremendous success of a movie for a series that we have been told lost its steam once we got out of the 90s. And yet has found itself again.
Yeah.
This is like Mission Impossible. They seem to be getting better the longer we're going.
It really is. It really is. And honestly, I feel like this is a tribute to solid storytelling. It is.
Agreed.
When the hero's journey is there, when the structure works, it should work anywhere, anytime. And this is akin to that. It rediscovered its roots. It found its soul again. Again, if I'm going to stick with the Rocky analogies, it got the eye of the tiger back. It got its edge back, and it is back, and it is better than ever.
Agreed. But, Joe, we know it's not perfect. Tell me, who asked you?
It is not perfect, and again, I sense a little hesitation by the filmmakers, very hesitant to not go down the road that might be perceived as corny or too much fan service or whatever. My Who Asked You, and you mentioned it before, there is a deleted scene after the first fight. Rocky is at the hospital, and Ivan Drago storms in. Now, I'm assuming that they're angry and upset because technically he was disqualified at that first fight.
Correct.
He's storming in, angry, kind of like how they sort of stormed into the hospital at the beginning of Rocky 2, actually.
Yes, I was thinking exactly that.
I mean? Yeah, so again, that little callback was pretty sweet. Okay, why is this a Who Asked You? Because they deleted it. And as far as I'm concerned, that to me is that would have, as far as I could tell, I don't know it. I can't second guess what the director did here, or what the decision was. But boy, would I have wanted to see that. I'm watching this saying like, what? You had Rocky and Ivan Drago punching each other and you took it out? So my only thought is that they started to lose their nerve, started to second guess and say, is this kind of going into the territory of, are we just having these guys fight just to say that we had them fight on screen again? Is it just fan service? Is it going off the rails? Is it taking the spotlight from Adonis Creed a little too much and putting it back on Rocky and Drago? I don't know, but I would have loved to have seen it. And the fact that it's not there, again, gives me a little, it sort of goes to my case that I'm making, that the film played it a little safe. And again, it was just missing that kind of uppercut, that punch, that ringer. That really would have pulled it all together. But again, the movie is solid, 100% solid as it is, but I think it just played it a little bit safe.
Well, Joe, probably, but they also pretty much guaranteed that you'll be buying the DVD or Blu-ray so that you can watch the deleted scene now.
They sure did. That's true, because I only saw the scene. The shots that I was able to see was shots of them filming, so you saw the camera, in the shot. You didn't see the finished product. So I am curious to see if that will ever see the light of day.
Oh, I'm sure somebody's going to edit that together just for you. Most likely just for you, Joe. And people like you.
There you go.
One of the things that I said for my Who Asked You, mine is a little more complicated. Because on the one hand, I praise this movie for taking a 42-year-old formula and breathing new life into it. But that said, it is still relying on a 42-year-old formula. It is, early victory, happiness, devastation, loss, picking yourself up from the loss, major training scene, big victory at the end. It is an age-old formula. It is the formula that Rocky created, and it's a solid formula. It needs to be shaken up, because this is one of the reasons why, in some ways, you felt the movie played it safe, because it was still following a formula of sorts. Now, I don't feel like it was a terrible, terrible, terrible distraction from the movie. I felt that it was very freshly done. I just hope that if there does wind up being a Creed 3, that they shake it up a little bit, like you said. Don't play it safe. Veer a little bit from the formula, okay? Veer a little bit from the formula. That's all. I'm not saying that the formula is completely bad, but because of that, in my head, I knew what the beats were going to be. It was my only real problem with the movie, is I knew what was coming next, except for that last scene.
No, and you're absolutely right. I think we're saying very similar things not that differently, frankly. You know, I the things that I did like, and again, it's almost like I guess I can't have my cake and eat it too, but I liked the idea that he sort of just figured it out on his own without that big aha moment or a big confrontation.
I appreciated that. I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, but I'm waiting for the all is lost moment, and we never really got it. You know, I mean, he was down hard. I mean, he got beaten, you know, to the where he was. I mean, when he was in a hospital, I mean, you're just like, oh my God, look at this poor guy. As low can get, I guess. I mean, to the point where I like the scene when he goes back to the gym, and the trainer comes outside and they talk, and he goes, "All right, I'll be in just a few," and then he just leaves.
Yeah.
I like where they're going with that. I like that stuff, but like I said, there was sort of an uppercut I was waiting for, and it didn't quite come.
Yeah. But on another side of the coin, Joe, there was a lot to like about this movie. But what stood out for you, for your consideration, Joe?
You know, there was a lot, and there was a lot of moments that I really did want to sort of, you know, shine a spotlight on. Dolph Lundgren, for one, spectacular. I was very surprised how good he did.
Amazed by how good he did. Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Did a great job. The humanity he brings to this, the ending, like you said. Again, it was almost a victory as much for the Drago family as it is for Adonis Creed and Rocky. I did like when Rocky sat down and just said, "This is your moment," and you just sort of see him silhouetted sitting down while he's doing his victory in the ring.
Right.
The appearance of Bridget Nielsen was a pleasant surprise. I did not know that was going to happen, so I got a chuckle out of that. But the thing I would like to sort of shine the spotlight on that I think we haven't quite mentioned yet, the director. I feel like this director now is kind of getting sort of shuffled under the carpet because, again, under the weight of the big film and how it did and all the other players involved. But here's a guy who again had a very unenviable task. He didn't really create this. He's not Ryan Coogler. He kind of came in late in the game, handed a film, like we said, could have easily gone off the rails. And he was able to deliver a pretty fine film. So I think he really does deserve a little credit here, and I'd like to just kind of use this moment to say, hey, guy, you did a good job.
Stephen Capel Jr., yes, he actually did still manage to keep the tone and aesthetic of Creed and keep it moving forward. So, yeah, I accept that. That is an excellent one.
And you, my friend?
Michael B. Jordan and Tessa Thompson. Honestly, such amazing chemistry between the two of them. Such tremendous acting throughout the entire series. Throughout, you know, every moment where the two of them were on screen playing together, I was charmed. I was in love with them as characters and as lovers and husband and wife. I loved every moment of them together. When the two of them were a team, I was just happy for them, happy watching it happen. But the scene, and I mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to bring it up again. This, to me, is it. The scene where they find out that the baby is deaf is heartbreaking and so well done. You know, there are actors out there who would have taken that scene and, like, really hammed it up. But I loved the way Jordan just, like, he reacted. Yeah. And but tried to like keep it together, but the tears just rolled down his face, and the way Tessa Thompson just like took it like he slapped her, like she physically felt him slap her when she saw his expression. What right? This is exactly what I wrote. Two things I wrote that I wanted to say that I didn't mention, but. For God's sakes, give Jordan the damn Oscar for his silent reaction to finding out his baby is deaf, and a second one for Thompson for her reading his reaction to that. That's what I wrote. I wrote that like 5 seconds after the movie ended. By the way, the other thing I wrote was, we are now 8 movies in the BCU, and very little that occurred was surprising. That stands for Balboa Cinematic Universe.
I like that. Right? Incidentally, there was one surprise that did catch me by surprise. I loved the scene when they went to see his mom, and
Felicia Rashad killed it.
Yes, she was terrific, and I love the moment where he says, "Oh, Ma, we gotta tell you something," And she goes, oh, I know. The glowing skin, the yada yada. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
That was very nice. Very nicely done. And that genuinely caught me by surprise.
I love that the fact that, she's like, no, and then she's thinking about it, and then she spits the wine out. I love that. That was just a little touch like that. Everything about this movie is character-driven. It's not just story-driven, it's character-driven. And the characters react to the story in a natural way. That's why this movie works.
I totally agree. And again, I think you're hitting on something. The filmmakers knew the structure is there. We don't have to focus on the structure. We can now focus on characters and basically make this a character-driven film riding on the back of a very firmly established structure.
Now you know what you're fighting for.
Round after round, you learn more about yourself. And when I stepped in that ring, it wasn't all about me.
Speaking of firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was very satisfying. But next week starts something interesting. Another film series that starts off extremely strong and ends kind of with a shoulder shrug. As we, Reviews Without Remorse, are going to dip our hands into The Matrix, the 1999 Matrix.
Here's a gear shift like...
I don't think the punches from The Matrix will hurt as hard, but we'll talk about that next week.
Sounds good. I will see you here next week, my friend. Thank you again for a great show.
Oh, man. Thank God we finally got to see this movie. I'm so happy. It's a great way to end the year.
Totally. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Rocky, please don't go to Mars and fight the Martian.
I gotta do what I gotta do.
But there's no oxygen on Mars.
Yeah? That means there's no oxygen for him either. That Martian wants a fight, he'll get a fight.
You can't win, Rock! You're 60 years old!
Hey, look what Rocky bought me with his money.